So the focus moves on now, and I'm looking to a band of London lyrical, not so normal, original characters not shy of scribing songs from their soul. Their website says, and I quote, having collectively soaked up much of the ever-evolving London cultural soundscapes, this band have lit a fuse from their mutual appreciation of ska and Trojan to adventurous indie and alternative soul. From the 9-piece band, The Launchers, I have Jim Soul, lead vocals and guitar. Hello, sir.
Hello, how are you doing, Andy? You well?
Yeah, I'm pretty good actually. Not bad at all. Thank you very much. Now I've had a call with a full band, so I'm pretty. It's quite chaotic. So I'm pleased that I've got Just Yourself for today, and it's your birthday as well. So happy birthday to you, sir. I hope the day continues to be amazing after talking to myself, which is obviously a high point.
Well, this is going to be a peak, yeah. I'll just have to struggle on for the rest of it after this, mate. Yeah.
Oh well, I hope you manage it. Right. So anyway. The full band, can you tell me who isn't here today?
So we're a 9-piece band. It's very diverse in terms of almost every kind of way that you can be diverse in as much as we've got people from different backgrounds, different ethnicities, different belief systems, different, classical upbringings and where they went to school and blah, blah, blah. So as a 9-piece band, we've got essentially 3 of us who play guitars. We have a bass guitar player, keyboards, drums, percussion, and then obviously a horn section of saxophone and trumpet as well. So I won't list all 9 people, but I'm sure they'll be known to some of our fans and anybody else who's taken an interest.
Gotcha. Okay then. Looking at your bio and the press release that was sent to me, it states that the band took off a few years ago. That's a bit vague for me. I wonder if you can fill in the gaps. When and how did you start up?
Officially, I think we started up in 2016. In the summer of 2016, we would come together as a kind of a writing collective, and just a couple of us were writing songs and exchanging ideas, and then we decided to put a band to it. And then ironically, we then got offered a gig straight very, very early doors, and we played at the Dublin Castle at Madness's. I think they were doing the Clapham Grand thing on the Sunday, on the Bank Holiday Monday. We played on the Sunday just before that as a kind of a sort of warm-up with some other bands. And we did basically a bunch of covers and a couple of originals. And we even had a different name because we hadn't come up with a band name by that point. So from there, from sort of August 2016 to now.
Is there a deep-seated meaning behind the name The Launchers, or was it plucked out the sky because it sounded cool?
I just really, do you know what? I just really liked old Trojan bands who were called The Something.
Oh, right, okay.
and The Launchers was one of those things. Also, I'll be honest with you, years ago I had a single from Ezrico and The Launchers, and I always kind of liked that idea. And because The Launchers weren't actually a band, they were just Ezrico, Rico Rodriguez's backing sort of band in that project, I thought it was fair game.
Right, we've had a bit of chat about you and the band, how it started. How about we get one of your tunes on? Would you like to introduce your first song?
Okay, so this is a song off our album, The Leader, and this is the title track called The Leader.
Offbeat Reggae Radio with The Launchers and The Leader, mixed by the legend that is Dave Bascombe. Now, if you're wondering who he is, undisputably one of the finest mix engineers working in England today. I've read that he has worked with Depeche Mode, Tears for Fears, Peter Gabriel, Manic Street Preachers. Although impressive, they're kind of different by way of music to The Launchers and what they produce. Jim, is it a new direction for him?
No, I think he's done a fair amount of dub and reggae as well.
Oh, nice,
and
okay.
As a remix engineer, he's done quite a lot. But we were quite specific in wanting him because of a certain sound that he's generated on some of those classic sort of 80s sounding things. So especially for Rainbow Children, we were trying to get an 80s sound. And with The Leader, it was very much that as well. We wanted that kind of classic, kind of quite heavy reverby, kind of not quite dubby, quite light and poppy, but still got that touch of what Dave Bascombe does, which is he's just a genius at making these songs sound fatter and fuller and more kind of easy on the ear. And we wanted that sound.
Nice. Well, I think you most definitely managed it. How did working with him come about? Did you just ask?
Yeah.
Oh, nice. That easy. End of story.
And to be honest with you, Jim Mason, who's the bass player in the band, has got an acquaintance with Dave, and now Jim actually has a background in studio engineering as well, so they had an affinity. And a couple of us are from the Twickenham area, sort of Twickenham, Richmond, and Dave doesn't live a million miles away from there as well, so we kind of had a very loose kind of social, hello, how you doing relationship. And then we just plucked up the courage to say, look, would you like to do it? He liked working on the tunes and we loved the result.
Fabulous. Yeah, it's turned out really, really well. I'm a big fan of it, most definitely. Now, 2020 has changed the way that music has been created, and the launchers seem to have adapted quite nicely. Could you tell me about the process and how it's changed?
It really is different in every single possible way, and it's almost like it flexes different muscles. So if you've got 9 people in a room, you're writing a song, then what you could do in a look or a gesture or a word might take 2 or 3 days by you playing a part and then sending it to a couple of the lads. Then they have to come back with a part. Then you say, no, that wasn't quite right. Can we do it again? Whereas when you're in the studio, you can just turn around on the spot and say, Jim, Bobby, whoever, oh no, can you try it? But can you try it more this way or that way? So your initial reaction is to feel a little bit almost hamstrung by that. And then I think what you do, or what I certainly did, was you become more deliberate in when you're writing it. So when you're coming up with the ideas, or when you're sort of like formulating the ideas, you have to be so much more descriptive to the rest of the band about what you want. You can't just be lazy and say, well, I've got 10 or 12 goes at this because I can just get him to play it again in a different way. You have to really kind of think beforehand, how did I want this to sound? What was the end product in my, sort of in my head? So we literally had a gig booked at the London International Ska Festival last year in April, I think it was. And it was on the night of that, we did a Zoom call between the band, which we did sort of once a week, say, a couple of beers and just caught up with each other. And we decided to write a new song and do something, but actually do it in this new kind of remote way. And we literally tried to do it via Zoom and those things, and you can't because there's a bit of a delay in timing between 2 people playing. So we worked out a way to do it, which was to do it in correspondence. So you would send something over, and then the next person would put a layer down, and then you'd go away, and you'd have to be very deliberate about what layer came next, because it's a bit like origami. Once you've folded it, it's difficult to unfold, Andy. But it was a learning curve, but a really good one in terms of it got you to think more creatively and more positively about what it is you wanted to do. So your statements become bolder and more deliberate rather than just off the cuff.
I'm with you. Okay. Now, the next single, by the time this goes out, will be out and available, produced during lockdown, I believe. What's the story behind Rainbow Children?
Well, I've got young children, and a couple of members of the band have as well. And I don't exactly know, because I wasn't a rip-roaring success at school, what word you use to term this, but when you get terms like baby boomer or Generation Xer or, those kind of, and they define an era. And the way I saw it was that our kids will be kind of remembered as the rainbow children, the ones that were putting the rainbows in the windows. And when they're 24, 25, that might be the collective noun that you use for that generation, for that age group, rainbow children. It wasn't particularly a political statement in terms of multiculturalism, although we are passionately supporters of that. So if you take that message from that, we're happy with that as well. But that wasn't necessarily what we were going for. It was more, we knew that the experience of lockdown was difficult for people. It was a challenge for people on lots and lots of different levels, from, your employment to your family to whether you actually had people who were ill or lost people. And I think we sort of began to kind of feel that there were some really positive things as well, that, this reconnection with the things that you actually like rather than just the things that you end up doing out of habit. That was a positive. I think it was a positive to spend time with your family and your friends, and even if it's just on Zoom, I caught up with people that I hadn't spoken to for 5 years. I don't know if you did the same, but
No, I've been a miserable git. I've disappeared into my own filth.
Rap-like state. No, I just found that for us it was quite joyous, and it almost like you felt quite guilty about saying that there was some nice things about that time, and it felt a little bit like, you don't want to kind of revel in it because people have had really difficult times, or there's been some tragic losses. But the reality of it was there was some periods during lockdown that were really nice. Sitting in the sunshine in your garden with your family was a nice thing. Reconnecting with your neighbours, doing the clapping at the door thing was one of the things that I liked personally, because there was a real sense of community, and I got to know some of the neighbours, which, you know, the rules, next door you say hello to, anybody else down the road you don't speak to, so it was nice to do that. It was kind of an amalgamation of those thoughts, Andy, really. Gotcha.
Okay, well, let's have a listen at The Launchers and Rainbow Children.
There's anybody out there still believing.
So it's the brand new single from The Launchers, Rainbow Children, released on the 23rd of March. Nearly done now, and we turn to an influence or music that you want to share right now. Jim, what did you choose as a major influence or music that you want to push that has relevance to The Launchers?
Like everyone, you've got loads of influences, obviously. There's lots of people that we grew, and with a 9-piece band, you are influenced by 9 people's influences. Different bands of different genres, and I suppose one of the more uniting things was that we all kind of had a loving for the sort of late 70s lovers rock stuff, especially the British stuff, you know, Steel Pulse and those kind of songs that were around when I was a kid, which were just so influential, and they, I think they've also influenced how we sound as much as other things have as well, because, you know, on our album we've got some stuff that's a bit klezmer sounding, we've got some stuff that's quite punky, we've got some stuff that's a bit different, but the lovers rock thing is definitely something that comes through, I think, a little bit in Rainbow Children, and I think it comes through in another one of our songs, Stop Don't Listen. That influence, there is a vein of that. So the song that I wanted to cite as a big influence to us was Silly Games by Janet Kay, because again it just had such an appeal, and it was just such an easily danceable song, but the sound of it often replicated but never bettered.
So it's an influence and a nice change of pace. Janet Kay, Silly Games, chosen by Jim of The Launchers as an influence track. Now, before we move on with the show, was there anything else, Jim, that you wanted to push or mention?
Yeah, do you know what? I would mention something that I thought was a really nice thing that we did with the band, which is the album, The Leader, that came out late 2019. We really felt during 2020 as well that we wanted to put something else out into the world, and we were writing and doing things. But what we did was we actually took the Leader album, we took it to several different producers and said, okay, basically have at these songs, one each, remix it how you want. And the only deal that we made on a handshake was that no matter what it came out like, we were going to put it out, regardless of our ego or anything else. And I really think that gave that reworked album a real kind of artistic freedom, which maybe, I'm not saying that we're particularly braver than other bands, but I think it is a relatively brave thing to do, to not try and make it polished and perfect and say, this is exactly what we wanted. We said, what's your vision? And the reworked album, if you've heard the original, and I urge that you do, obviously, on Island Farm Records, but also the reworked just gives you another flavour of somebody else's take on it, and it actually goes sort of a different place. So there you go. My sort of suggestion today is go and listen to the reworked album versus original and see which ones you prefer.
Yes, most definitely. I did that, actually. I listened to the original one first and then compared it to the other one. It's worked out really well, I think.
Well, it was warts and all, and like I say, that it was done with no safety net. I mean, what we got back, we didn't tinker with, and we didn't give any direction at all. We just said, look, do what you want. And I'll be honest with you, there's a couple of tracks on there that I think, okay, that's not what I would have done, but that's what makes it fun. And there are people who've written to us on our site and other things and said, I prefer this version of that. You know, and that's great. Okay, that's what we'll strive to do, is we'll strive to kind of put it back in the audience's hands, and rather than try and sort of dictate what you should listen to.
Okay, we are done, sir. Thank you very much for having a chat with me and introducing me to the music from The Launchers. I've got your press release, which I'll use to create a page for you on the Offbeat website. So if anybody wants to learn more about The Launchers, it'll include links to your website, social media portals and bio, video, and also use Apple players so that people can listen to little snippets of tunes to see if they want to purchase the album as well. All of that can be found from offbeatreggae.com.
Thank you, Andy. Thanks very much for the time, and lovely to speak to the listeners out there.
Yeah, man, nice one. Please keep me in the loop for any further Launchers-related news.
I will do that.
Take care, boss.
Cheers, mate.